For this recording, I want to show you how we can create the mould for a flower that could be used to make a pewter cast or a resin mould. So here I have a model of a flower that I did earlier, okay? And what we're hoping to do is to be able to create a block from that has a recess in that's created by the flower shape that I've created there, which could then be turned into a pewter casting mould or something for resin later on, okay, for it. This is what we're trying to actually achieve here. So to start off with then, I'm going to start off by just creating a new part studio. So I've got a blank area to work with, okay. I'm going to be drawing on the top work plane, so top work plane there, like so. I need to start my sketch on that and make sure I'm actually selected onto that part there. I'm going to start off with my ellipse tool, so to pick the ellipse. I'm going to move to the center of the origin there and drag out the ellipse shape first, so there, okay, and then we can set the width of it. Now we're going to set the dimensions in a minute for that, so don't worry about that. So next I'm going to pick my dimensions tool, okay, click on the edge of the ellipse. I want this to have a width of 15 mil, so 15 mil, okay, and a length this way of 40 mil, okay, 40 by 15. That's what we're after for it, okay. So that gives me a nice sort of ellipse shape there, okay. Take off my dimension tool. Now what I want to arrange this as a pattern of 3 of these. So I'm going to go to my tools here. Hang on, I just need to finish my, I need to go to my, that's pencil there, that's right. Go to my circular pattern tool there, okay? And I'm going to click on the edge of the shape, like so. And by default, that assumes that you want to have 3 of these created. And you'll see there is a little 3x button here, which we can click on if we want to, and we can change this to make it into more shapes or less shapes. I only want 3, so that's what I want to actually have there. That's perfect for me, okay? Whilst that's still selected, oops, I didn't actually complete that, did I? Let's see, so what I have to do is click outside there. That's right, click onto the shape there to complete the selection there. That's fine. Now I can take off my pattern tool. Then I'm going to go to my extrusion tool here and click on the shape. And that will assume you want to extrude the shape, but it assumes you want to miss the middle part out. So you need to make sure you select the middle part so that's included in the extrusion. And by default, it thinks that you want to only take it up to 25 millimeters, which is way too thick. So we're going to change this to 8 millimeters. Okay, so we've got an 8 millimeter extrusion. That's fine. Green tick that. Now, it looks a bit blocky at the minute, so we're going to add some fillets to this. So we'll choose our fillet tool. Okay, there. And again, this is going to have a default size of 5 millimeters. We only want 1 millimeter because that's way too thick. So I'm just going to pick the edge of the shape here as I go around the top perimeter and just change that down to 1 millimeter. And that gives me a nice rounded edge there. I'm happy with that. Green tick that. That gives me a nice shape. And it's still looking a bit flat, so we're going to click on the top surface of this and put a new sketch. I'm going to take my center point circle and make sure that I'm looking at the top view of my shape there, okay? And I'm going to start from the center here, there, and just drag out a circle about 15 millimeters in diameter. So let's diameter that, so that, there. Yeah, I'm quite close there, but we'll change it to 15. There we are. Okay, and we'll extrude that. And we want this to go down, so we're going to remove for this, and we only want this to go down to a depth of 1 millimeter, not the default 25 millimeters, because otherwise that's going to create a hole going all the way through it. We just want a little recess like so going into it. That's fine. Green tick that. Okay, now the next part. We'll have a look at this where it says part 1 here, and there's 3 dots next to it. So I'm going to click on the 3 dots. I'm going to rename this, and I'm going to rename this one flower, so I know that's my part, renamed that. Brilliant. Okay. So next part, we want to be able to create a block, which is going to be the casing for our mold. So I'm going to select my top work plane and click on my new sketch there. I'm going to pick my center point rectangle and click on the top view, so I'm looking straight at it. So we're going to start right from the middle, from my origin there. I'm going to drag out a box. Now we want this to be about 60 by 60, so it needs to be bigger than the shape. So that's probably about 70 by 70, I'm guessing, but we'll dimension it and just check. So that side there is 70. Oh, I said 70. It's 75. Let's make this 60. That's fine. And we'll make the bottom part, we'll make that 60 as well. Okay, 60. Green tick that. That's fine. Okay. And whilst that's still live, we're going to extrude this. So extrude. And we'll extrude that to a height. And we want this to make sure that this is not an add, otherwise it will combine with the existing part of the flower. We want to make this into a new shape, so it'll be a different color when it comes through. Okay. We're going to make this a depth of, or a height of 15. 15 should be fine. Okay, 15. Okay, let me take that. There we have. Now that seems to have hidden our flower, but as you can see, it's actually inside the block here, and that's why you get that sort of patterny effect there, because it thinks that it's trying to break through the shape there. Okay, and we'll rename this. So we'll click on the 3 dots next to part 2 and just rename this, and we'll call this block. Okay, rename part there. Fantastic. Now, okay, so we're almost there with this. Let's go to our tools here, and we're going to choose this time the Boolean tool, because what I want to try and do is to create the mold shape. So I'm going to click on Boolean. Okay. Now Boolean asks you to do it in 3 different ways. Okay. You can either union, subtract, or intersect. We want to subtract, and that asks us to choose a tool and a target. The tool is going to be the flower, so I'm going to select flower from the menu, or I can click on the picture of the flower on the screen there. Okay, and then I'm going to click on target to make that blue, and I'm going to select the block as the target. Okay, the block as the target, and you can see there that it's done this. Now what is hidden is the actual flower, so I'm just going to, before I click on anything else, I'm going to slide this part here saying keep tools there, and what that does, that keeps our flower in place as well. So then we'll tick this. Now let's see what we have. So if we hide the flower, can you see we now have a nice recess where the flower used to be. Okay, so we now have a mold. And if we remove the block, we are still left with the flowers, our tools. So everything is still in place, which is great. I'm going to hide the flower for a little bit. Okay, now we need to have a way that we can actually put the pewter into the mold. Okay, so I want to try and choose a side that's closest to a petal. So if you look, the side on the right hand side here is it's got 2 little petals there, so it's quite deep there. So I don't want that one. What I want is this top surface here. There, that'll do. Let's deselect that line. So that's the surface I want to be working on there. So with that selected, I'm going to click on sketch, because I want to put a new sketch on that surface. Okay, so this is going to be sketch 4, and that's going to be on that surface. I'm going to swing to my front view, so I'm looking straight at the top of it, like so. Okay, and I'm going to pick my center point circle. Now, what I'm going to do, I'm going to move this to this origin here that we can still see here, and we're going to drag out a circle like so. Now I think a diameter of about 15 millimeters is going to be perfect for this, so click on that circle there, and we'll change this to 15. Okay, there, that's great. And then if we rotate this around a little bit, you can see how that circle's sitting there. And I'm going to extrude this. So extrude. Now remember, by default, it's going to think that it wants to make a column go upwards of 25. We want this to actually remove. Okay, so it's going to go down. But as you can see, it's creating a very 15 mil channel going straight into the flower, which is way too large. So what we're going to do, we're going to use a thing called the draft tool. Draft. Okay, so I'm going to put that slider across so it says draft. And by default, it gives you an angle of 3 degrees. And as you can see, it seems to be splaying out into the shape. So we're going to change this also to opposite direction, like so. So it starts to go in. The channel is still very wide, so I'm going to change that by changing the number of degrees here. So I think, let's try 25 degrees, see what happens. Ooh, that's looking better. That's looking more like a funnel, but it's still very wide at the top there. So I'm going to change that again. I'm going to make this 30 degrees. That's better. That gives me a nice narrow channel going into our shape there. And I'm happy with that. So I'm going to green tick that. And there we have a nice funnel going into our shape. So we've got somewhere to pour our pewter in. Okay. Last part that I want to create now is the block that's going to go on the front of the mold to keep the pewter in as it's being poured in. So we're going to do a new sketch for this. We're going to do this on the back of the top work plane. So this plane here, and click on sketch. So we're going there, and it's going to be on the bottom, because it's going to be behind the models that we've already created there. So bottom there. Okay. I'm going to take my center point rectangle and slide that to the center here, and then drag out that. Now, I want it to be exactly the same size as the existing block, so that should be there. That's perfect there. Okay. Well, what we're going to do, we're going to extrude that. Okay. So let me just undo that last bit I did there. I'm just going to do that again because I clicked very stupidly on the back of the shape there. I don't want that on the screen. There, that's better. There, I'm happy with that. Okay. Right. I'm going to deselect my center point rectangle tool and select my extrude tool. There we are. Right, now remember it will by default go in one direction, and it will be 25mm, which is way too thick. So I want it to go into the opposite direction. So it's going like so. We want this to be a new part, not an added part, but a new part. We're going to set the depth of it to the thickness of the material that we're going to be using for this, which is going to be 4mm. So 4mm, and then green tick. There we have our block there. So I can green tick that. So there we have a plate that can go on the back of it. So we can pour our pewter inside that recess. It will go into our flour, and then it will go into our mold inside there. Okay, so I'm going to rename this part as well as plate. Yep, that'll do. Rename that. And I think we can probably hide all our views on here as well. So I'm going to hide all these parts here because we don't need to see those. And there we have our completed shape there. And we can check this by hiding various parts. If I click on to hide the plate, I can see that I have my mold. If I hide the block and show the flour, I've still got my flour there. And I've got my plate, my block, and they all work together there. Okay, I'm looking forward to seeing your results.